Hey everybody, this is Joshua Orro, host of Mustang Prince Orro Reports. And today, I'm going to do yet another countdown video. What of, you may ask? Well, let's talk about, in my opinion, the greatest theme park in the world, Disneyland. Opened in July 17th, 1955, this was the very first Disney theme park and the only theme park designed and built to completion under the direct supervision of Walt Disney himself. Walt came up with the concept of Disneyland after visiting various amusement parks with his daughters back during the 1930s and 1940s. He initially envisioned building a tourist attraction adjacent to his studios in Burbank in order to entertain fans who wished to visit. However, he soon realized that the proposed site was a bit too small. So, after hiring a consultant to help him determine an appropriate site for his project, Disney bought a 160-acre site near Anaheim in 1953. Construction began in 1954, and the park was unveiled during a special televised press event on the ABC television network on July 17, 1955. Ever since its opening, Disneyland, along with its neighboring park, Disney California Adventure, has endlessly continued making guests worldwide entertained and happy, while also undergoing several expansions and major renovations over the years. And to me, ever since my first visit back in 1993, Disneyland Resort really is my favorite theme park to visit, especially with my family and friends. And after hearing Jodi Benson's Disneyland song on YouTube in 2007, I made it a goal to hopefully work at this magical theme park in my future, if the Disney Imagineers will have me. Anyway, with Disneyland Resort finally reopening after a year-long closure, no thanks to COVID, I'm going to count down 15 of my favorite attractions, which may include kiddie rides, thrill rides, dark rides, interactive rides, or maybe an entertaining show. Of course, I have to set a couple rules for this video. Number one, this list is based on my personal experience, so it has to be an attraction that I've actually been on in person. So, unfortunately, I can't include rides like Rise of the Resistance or Snow White's Enchanted Wish yet. Rule 2. These attractions have to be currently up and running when the parks reopen. And of course, I will be including a few mini clips from some of the rides, but I also will give credit to their video distributors. Also, if you folks disagree with my picks, then it's perfectly fine. We all have our own tastes in certain Disneyland theme park attractions. So, in the words of Walt Disney, to all come to this happy video, welcome. And for your viewing pleasures, please keep your hands and feet inside your vehicles, no flash pictures or video lighting, no feeding churros to that jerk with the camera, and especially no thumbs down, and of course, please watch your children. This is the top 15 attractions at Disneyland Resort.
Disneyland, Magic Kingdom, Disneyland. I close my eyes real tight, wishing hard I might, wishing hard I may find my way to Disneyland. Gotta get to Disneyland.
Now let's begin our countdown in the backwoods shady area of Critter Country, where you can have fun with all kinds of woodland creatures. However, the future of this area is pretty much a mystery after Splash Mountain gets a Princess and the Frog makeover. But for this spot, let's head into the 100-acre wood to meet the silly, charming, and cuddly icon of childhood. Based on the beloved animated shorts from 1966 to 1974, and first opened at Disneyland on April 2003, this is a child-friendly dark ride that takes guests on a fun-filled adventure with Winnie the Pooh in search of... what else? Honey. What I like about this ride is the childhood nostalgia that it brings to all people, young or old, who grew up with Winnie the Pooh. And to me, some of my favorite scenes include Tigger's appearances, since he's my favorite character in Pooh's gang, and of course the Heffalumps and Woozle scene, which to me is very trippy and crazy. I also like how the Beehive ride vehicles continuously tilt, which kind of feels similar to the Jeeps in Indiana Jones. However, the main reason why this attraction is on the bottom of my list is because this ride replaced my favorite childhood show, the Country Bear Jamboree, which I miss very badly. But luckily, this ride and a few other things do keep a few Easter eggs from the show around. For example, in the Heffalumps and Woozle scene, Pooh bobbing up and down in a balloon is the same mechanism used for Teddy Bear's ceiling swing, and you can find Max, Buff, and Melvin above an archway in the scene where Pooh is eating some honey. Also, believe it or not, Big Al's animatronic model has been reused for Oogie Boogie during the Haunted Mansion holiday, and Dolores the Octopus can be found in the basement queue in Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout. Still, hopefully someday, if we're lucky, the Disney Imagineers may change their mind and bring the Country Bears show to California Adventure, maybe to the Grizzly Peak area. Anyway, with all that said, if a Winnie the Pooh ride is what you covet, then I'm sure with this kid-friendly dark ride, you'll love it.
What a wonderful dream!
Gotta get to Disneyland.
Now let's head over to Hollywoodland, where a very special door takes us to a cab company in Monstropolis. Based on Pixar's Monsters, Inc., and first opened in January 2006, this ride takes guests on a journey through the streets of Monstropolis and through the factories of Monsters, Inc. to help Mike and Sully get Boo back to her door. To me, this ride is very impressive, and it's way more improved compared to Superstar Limo, even though I've never been on it, unfortunately. Also, I like the amazing smells like the ginger at Harryhausen's or the lemony snow cones. Plus, I think the animatronics give the ride a lot of charm and humor. Also, I think the ending feature involving Roz always makes me chuckle. Plus, I know a few people who might love this ride due to their friendly connection with Pete Docter. However, to me, the scene where the CDA appears is not only startling, but it becomes very blinding when they shine their searchlights right in my face. Anyway, if you like to go on a scary and funny monster ride, then Monsters, Inc. Mike and Sully to the Rescue is just the ride for you.
It's been the most terrifying day of my life.
Mike,
But I love you, kiddo.
Good night.
Kitty!
Kitty's gotta go now.
Gotta get to Disneyland.
Now, the opening area of Disneyland, Main Street, USA, may not offer much when it comes to attractions. I mean, sure, there's the Main Street Cinema and the place where you encounter Walt Disney's childhood hero, Abraham Lincoln, as well as several vehicles that can give you a ride down the street. But did you folks know that Walt Disney loved trains? Yes, folks, I'm literally putting the Disneyland Railroad on this list. Not only because of Walt Disney's love for trains, but I think this ride is a great way for folks to get a nice view of Disneyland on their first visits. This 1.5-mile train ride goes to 4 different train stations around the park. Not just Main Street, USA, but also New Orleans Square, Mickey's Toontown, and Tomorrowland. To me, even though I didn't really like it at first due to my fear of the dark tunnels, I think this ride is absolutely breathtaking, especially when most of the passenger cars on the train have you look outwards instead of forwards. And while Thurl Ravenscroft was a classical narrator during my childhood, I think Bob Joles does a pretty good job ever since 2017. Also, some of my favorite moments during the Grand Circle tour is when the train passes through Splash Mountain and It's a Small World. And I also think the Grand Canyon, largely based on the 1958 documentary of the same name, and the Primeval World dioramas are really amazing, especially with the new projection mapping effects in the backgrounds, which feature eagles flying, a small river, pterodactyls flying, a sandstorm, a volcano eruption, and lightning flashing with strobe lights. However, the lightning striking a tree kind of makes me jump a bit. By the way, for those who don't know, the Primeval World not only debuted at the 1964 New York World's Fair as part of Ford's Magic Skyway, but the dinosaurs in that diorama are based on the Rite of Spring segment from Fantasia. Bet you never knew that, did ya? Anyway, if you're new to Disneyland and want to start your visit on a breathtaking note, then all aboard on the Disneyland Railroad. What?
I'd especially like to thank those of you who've been with me for the Grand Circle tour of Disneyland. We hope you enjoyed your travels with us and that you'll come back to ride with us again real soon.
Gotta get to Disneyland.
Our next entry will take us to the cartoon world of Mickey's Toontown, which first opened in 1993, the year when I first visited Disneyland. This area is where you can meet Mickey and Minnie at their houses, have a mini thrill on Gadget Hack Wrench's Go Coaster, or play around in Chip 'n Dale's Treehouse, Donald Duck's Boat, or Goofy's Playhouse. By the way, I'm surprised that one of the pumpkins in Goofy's garden is a reference to my friend Kayleigh's late grandfather, Jack Lindquist. Also, I hear that during the Endgame year of 2023, Mickey and Minnie will finally get their own ride in the form of a trackless train ride. But for this spot, let's look at Toontown's classical dark ride starring Roger Rabbit. Based on the 1988 Robert Zemeckis movie, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and first opened in Toontown on January 1994, this is a very cartoony dark ride. After going through several Toontown areas, guests board Benny the Toon Cat's cousin, Lenny, and after driving through a puddle of dip, your steering wheel gives you the ability to spin around, while helping Roger avoid the evil Toon Patrol and rescue Jessica Rabbit. You know, while this ride is very zany, I feel that it's kinda underrated these days, since I don't think many children know about the movie, since I did mention back in 2018 that it's not a kid-friendly movie due to the innuendo and foul language featured. Plus, I think the spinning mechanism makes this ride very unique compared to the other dark rides at the resort. Plus, some of my favorite moments in this ride are in the Spin Street, where Toon fire hydrants, power cables, and street lights laugh and spin around, the scene where you quote-unquote fall from Toon skyscrapers, and the final scene at the Gag Factory. So, until Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway opens up, be sure to have a cartoony spin with Roger Rabbit.
I got a portable hose! Alice, hey, Jack!
Gotta get to Disneyland.
New Orleans Square, the area of hot jazz and southern cooking, and the home of two rides that have a similar history. As I stated before, I was introduced to both these attractions from watching two of the Disney sing-along VHSs, and I did say that my first time experiencing each of them didn't go very well due to me becoming frightened by waterfalls and scary effects. And I was about 4 or 5 years old during the times. But when the 2000s rolled around, and after watching these movies, I became braver and I grew to appreciate these two rides more. Anyway, let's start with the first ride in my tie. Pirates of the Caribbean, which opened in March of 1967, was the very last Disneyland ride in which Walt Disney officially oversaw before his death in 1966. Once you board your boat at the infamous Lafitte's Landing dock inside a building inspired by the Cabildo where the Louisiana Purchase was signed in 1803, you sail through a Louisiana bayou known as the Blue Bayou Lagoon, but after encountering the talking skull of Captain X, voiced by X Atencio, and going down 2 waterfalls, you end up in the Pirate's Grotto, where your ride officially begins. By the way, do you know why this ride has 2 waterfalls? Well, it's because one of the drops was a pre-dug basement when Disney originally wanted the attraction to be an underground wax museum. Anyway, aside from the grotto, the ride features a Caribbean fort of Isla Tesoro being attacked by the Wicked Wench, the town square, the burning city, the dungeons, and the finale gunpowder scene, which happens before your boat goes up the lift hill. To me, the pirates featured throughout this ride are very classical, and they're designed very cleverly, thanks to the late Disney animator and Imagineer Mark Davis. Also, not only do I love the Yo Ho song, but I like the several changes that the ride has had over the years, like the addition of Captain Jack Sparrow and Barbossa in 2006, the changes to scenes that were a tad controversial, like the pirates auctioning off valuable items instead of women, and the chase scene being altered to the pirates with food and loot running away from ladies who are attacking them, while one pirate is chasing a cantina lady with a tray containing, I think, wine, instead of the pirates chasing the ladies. Also, the Disney Imagineers have added Cotton's parrot, the stone chest from the first movie to the Pirate's Grotto, a new pirate character named Red, voiced by Greta Lyle, and a new scene where we see a pirate caught in a cage turning into a skeleton via an optical trick, as well as an octopus playing with some medallions, accompanied by the 1966 ghostly voices of Paul Frees and J. Pat O'Malley. Now, let's talk about the Haunted Mansion, which opened in August of 1969. Like Pirates, this ride was originally going to be a museum walkthrough, though, as I stated back in 2019, during my 400th episode, the ride was influenced by Walt Disney's visit to the Winchester Mystery Mansion in San Jose. But since Walt didn't really like the idea of a rundown and decrepitated looking haunted house, the design of the mansion was inspired after the Shipley Lydecker House in Baltimore City. Plus, aside from Mark Davis, there were a few other Imagineer teams who were helping in developing the mansion's ride, like Ken Anderson, Yale Gracie, and Claude Coates. Anyway, after going through the mansion's pet cemetery and entering through the front door into the foyer, you are greeted by your tour guide, or ghost host, voiced by Paul Frees, who then takes you into a spooky room with 4 portraits where the lower parts seem to stretch downwards while revealing the 4 people's deathly fates. However, in reality, the stretching room is actually an elevator with no roof. By the way, when I was little, this part of the attraction frightened me to death due to the thunder and lightning effect. After that frightening experience, you then head into the portrait hallway, which is located underneath the railroad, with several portraits that change when lightning flashes on them, along with 2 marble busts that watch you as you walk by them. This leads to your Omnimover Doom Buggy vehicle, which I think was recycled from Adventures Through Inner Space. From the loading bay, you are taken to an endless hallway, a conservatorium, a corridor of doors, Madame Leota's seance room, the ballroom, where there are 2 Disney Easter eggs, the attic, and the graveyard. The things that I like about this ride are the several special effects, which nowadays are not only spooky, but also cool at the same time. Not only do we have classical audio animatronics, but there are also shadowy projections, projection mapping, and, of course, the Pepper's ghost effects. Plus, I think the grim grinning ghost song, sung by the Singing Headbusts, led by Thurl Ravenscroft, is a really catchy Disney song. And it seems like the kind of song that you'd likely listen to when Halloween rolls by. Plus, I like a few of the new changes that have been added over the years, like the piano player in the attic, Madame Leota floating around the seance room, the Black Widow bride, Constance Hatchaway, who's voiced by Kat Cressida, aka Dee Dee from Dexter's Laboratory, and of course, the Hatbox Ghost. Plus, I like that during the Halloween and Christmas seasons, ever since 2001, Jack Skellington and his friends from The Nightmare Before Christmas come to make this ride into the Haunted Mansion holiday, which to me is absolutely very creative while mixing two holidays together. By the way, during January of 2020, before COVID happened, the Haunted Mansion was about to go through an extensive refurbishment where the Imagineers were about to add lighting steel panels, improved lighting, mechanical touch-ups, new paint and trims to the attraction's exterior, and of course, the return of the April through December portrait. So, by the time Disneyland opens, I'll be looking forward to some new ghostly surprises. So, with all that said, be sure to set sail and sing along with some jolly pirates, and visit a creepy mansion where 999 ghosts are just dying to meet you.
Yo ho, a pirate's life for me.
We've been dying to have you.
Gotta get to Disneyland.
You know, I've been hearing that Fantasyland is a fan favorite area for many Disneyland guests. In this enchanted world, you can hop on a horse on King Arthur Carousel, go flying on Dumbo the Flying Elephant, take a train ride on Casey Jr., or go on some exciting adventures with Pinocchio, Peter Pan, Alice, Mr. Toad, and soon Snow White. But out of all these attractions, those do not top a classic boat ride that's been a real childhood favorite ever since my first visit. Now, this ride first opened at Disneyland in May 1966, and it first debuted at the 1964 New York World's Fair. After reading this classical read-along book, It's a Small World became one of my favorite rides ever since my early childhood. Bash me if you want, I do not care. Now, one of the things I like about this ride is the clock tower icon, which kind of acts as the ride's pre-show every 15 minutes. But after boarding your boat and entering into the show building, that's where the ride truly shines. Inside is an enchanted land where Voyagers can encounter about 300 animatronic dolls that represent the children of the world, clad in traditional, loyal costumes, and singing the classical It's a Small World song written by the legendary Richard and Robert Sherman. Now, a lot of folks do say that this song is extremely annoying and repetitive. Well, that may be true, but to me, what makes it less annoying is that it's sung in multi-language, in order to stay true to every country's nationality. Plus, I like the song's message about international unity and global peace. Also, I think Mary Blair, who animated Alice in Wonderland, did a marvelous job designing the ride's exterior, the original characters, and the countries. Some of my favorite parts include the European setting, which includes England, France, Scotland, Belgium, Ireland, Holland, Spain, Portugal, and Italy, the Latin American setting, which includes Mexico and South America, and of course the South Pacific, which includes Hawaii, Australia, and the Polynesian Islands. Plus, I like the 29 Disney character dolls and the new USA setting that have been added in 2009. And I absolutely love the Christmas overlay that has been around since 1997. Plus, while the ride did have an appearance in the beginning of the 2015 Tomorrowland movie, I heard that in the future, director John Turteltaub will be directing a movie based on this classic ride. So, with all that said, It's a Small World is a ride that's sure to bring a smile and friendship to everybody all over the world.
Gotta get to Disneyland.
You know, while Disney California Adventure didn't really get a good reception during its opening in 2001, a lot of folks say that one of their original rides has been a real fan favorite for them. Now, my first time experiencing this IMAX hang glider simulator was during the late summer of 2002, and to me, this is one of my favorite rides at DCA. One reason is because while you're going through the queue line, the first room you come across inside the building is the Wings of Fame, which pays homage to many famous people like John J. Montgomery, Amelia Earhart, Jimmy Doolittle, Charles Lindbergh, the Wright brothers, Howard Hughes, Kelly Johnson, and more. But after giving your instructions from Patrick Warburton during the pre-show, you're escorted into a huge room with 3 rows of hang gliders with wing-like canopies and a giant Omnimax screen, which to me, judging by its shape, looks like binocular lenses. As soon as everybody is seated, buckled up, and Patrick gives the all clear, you immediately become airborne when your vehicles are lifted 40 feet in front of the screen. While the takeoff is a little intense at first, what I love about this experience is that it makes you feel like you're actually flying over several different California landmarks, like San Francisco, Yosemite, Lake Tahoe, Monterey Bay, Malibu, Los Angeles, and Disneyland. Also, I like that your vehicles are given subtle vertical movements in order to synchronize with the film footage in order to enhance the illusion of flight. Plus, in my opinion, the musical score by Jerry Goldsmith is very beautiful and inspirational, and I like the different smells like ocean breezes, oranges, and pines, which were injected into airstreams that blow onto the riders. But then, in 2015, things began to change when the surrounding area of Condor Flats was transformed into Grizzly Peak Airfield. A year later, the ride's name was changed from Soarin' over California to Soarin' around the world, where you fly over several world locations like the Matterhorn in Switzerland, Sydney, Australia, the Great Wall of China, the Pyramids of Egypt, the Taj Mahal in India, Monument Valley in Utah, the Eiffel Tower in Paris, France, and, like in the original, Disneyland. By the way, to me, I don't really mind the global version, but it still doesn't really top my feelings for the California version. However, hopefully someday in the future, Disney might probably get the idea of letting the ride keep both versions. Maybe. Still, like I said earlier, this is one of my favorite California Adventure rides, and nowadays, it brings back memories of when I got to experience another flying simulator ride called This Is Allin, when I visited Amsterdam back in September 2019. Anyway, if you love the idea of flying, then spread your wings on Soarin'.
Okay, let's review. That is seatbelt, carry-on item, safety strap, fear of heights, keep your hands and arms inside at all times. Anything else? Well, yeah. Have a nice flight.
Gotta get to Disneyland.
And now, for this spot, let's take a look at one of Disney's most thrilling rides. Opening in March of 1995 in the Adventureland area, just next door to the Jungle Cruise, lies an ancient Bengalese temple. According to Dr. Henry Indiana Jones, the temple contains a chamber of destiny where an ancient idol, known as Mara, offers one of 3 gifts: eternal youth, earthly riches, or visions of the future. But If anyone dares to look into Mara's eyes, they take a detour to doom. After boarding your military jeep and escaping the gates of doom, which Indy struggles to keep the doors closed, Indy directs you to the exit route, and it's your job to escape the temple while avoiding several dangerous obstacles like skeletons, beetles, giant cobras, poison darts, and a giant boulder. My very first experience on this ride was during the spring of 2002, and to me, this is a really thrilling and bumpy off-road Jeep ride. By the way, while the road may seem flat, the Jeeps are, in reality, enhanced motion vehicles, or EMVs for short, where the top half of the vehicles where the riders are sitting on is a motion simulator base which simulates movement, such as driving over rough terrain or leaning through a turn, which makes the ride experience appear more realistic. By the way, my very first experience with this ride system was back in 1998 with Dinosaur, and I'm sure most of you who saw my blog of the 2000 movie last year may already know that I was traumatized after going through that, even though my experience in 2014 was a lot better. Also, aside from the ride experience, another thing that I like about Indy's ride is the stuff in the queue line, and I thought the backup wall effect during the boulder scene is pretty interesting, almost like something you'd see happen in a car wash. Plus, I like the projection mapping effects used for the 3 doors and Mara's face. Plus, James Earl Jones' voice makes Mara very intimidating. However, my one flaw with this ride is the air blasting during the beetles and the poison dart scenes, because sometimes strong air makes me feel a bit uncomfortable. So, if you're willing to go on a thrilling adventure with Indiana Jones in the Temple of the Forbidden Eye, just remember, it's more than a ride, it's real.
Now, don't tell me that wasn't big fun.
Gotta get to Disneyland.
You know, another fan favorite Disney ride would have to be Buzz Lightyear's Astro Blasters, an interactive shooting ride where guests can hopefully one day earn the rank of Galactic Hero. However, it's sadly disappointing that Buzz will not be open when Disneyland reopens. So, let's hop over to Pixar Pier to look at Disney's second interactive shooting ride. Ooh yeah, now we're getting into the really good stuff. Opening in June 2008 as the first part of California Adventure's 5-year-long renovation and expansion plan, this is a ride where guests can wear 3D Carnival game goggles while riding aboard spinning vehicles that travel through virtual environments based on classic Carnival Midway games, and of course inspired by the virtual Pirates of the Caribbean Battle for Buccaneer Gold at Disney Quest. The ride features games like the Pie Throw Practice Booth, Ham and Eggs with Ham and Buttercup, Rex and Trixie's Dino Darts, the Green Army Men's Shooting Camp, Buzz Lightyear's Flying Tossers, Woody and Jesse's Rootin' Tootin' Shootin' Gallery, and Stinky Pete the Prospector's Gold Mine. To me, not only is this ride a lot of fun when it comes to competition and shooting for a high score, but among all the rides on this list, this has the fastest pace of them all. My favorite games in this ride include Dino Darts, the Shooting Camp, the Rootin' Tootin' Shootin' Gallery, and the Gold Mine, while the Flying Tossers is pretty much the toughest in my opinion. Plus, this was one of the rarest rides to influence a Wii game. Also, during the making of this list, Disney California Adventure will be having a new interactive shooting ride in the form of Web Slingers, a Spider-Man adventure, which will be opening with Avengers Campus on June 4th, 2021. And trust me, I'm deeply hyped about that. I mean, who wouldn't want to shoot webs from their wrists like Spider-Man can? Anyway, when it comes to Toy Story Midway Mania, this is a ride where everyone's a winner.
Gotta get to Disneyland.
Speaking of Avengers Campus, for the number 6 spot, we'll be looking at the very first American Marvel ride at a Disney theme park. Now, at first, many Disney fans, including myself, were feeling very skeptical that the Guardians of the Galaxy would be replacing the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror. But when the ride opened in 2017, just 22 days after the release of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, it turns out that the ride was a lot better than most folks thought. The premise of the ride is that sometime prior, the Guardians have been captured by Taneleer Tavan, the Collector, from the planet Nowhere, and they're being kept in customized display cases protected by an electric force field to prevent the Guardians from escaping. However, Rocket Raccoon has secretly escaped his case using a drill made from an electric toothbrush, and while the guests are in the Collector's office, Rocket asks everybody to help using their clearance so that he can ride the gantry lift up to the control room and destroy the generator. That way, every cage in the fortress will be opened up and the Guardians will be set free. In my eyes, this ride is very exhilarating due to how fast the gantry lift goes up and down. Plus, I like the several scenarios, directed by James Gunn, which are played out very differently every time you ride it. Speaking of differences, unlike in the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror, where the drop sequence pattern is exactly the same, Mission Breakout's drops are randomized. Also, I like that it still takes the riders up to the top window to get a photo snapshot, which is where Rocket breaks the fourth wall by pointing out Disneyland in the distance. Plus, to me, I think Rocket has some of the funniest quotes in this ride. Another thing that I like about this ride are the different songs that play when Rocket plugs in Star-Lord's Walkman into the gantry lift system, which consists of Hit Me With Your Best Shot by Pat Benatar, Give Up the Funk by Parliament, Born to Be Wild by Steppenwolf, I Want You Back by the Jackson 5, Free Ride by the Edgar Winter Group, and Burnin' Love by Elvis Presley. And sometimes I can't help but sing along while the lift goes up and down. Also, to me, I think this ride has the biggest collection of Easter eggs out of any Disney attraction. You see, while you're going through the queue line, you might notice certain things like Ultron, Cosmo the Space Dog, Doctor Strange's Eye of Agamotto, the Bellhop's hat, Figment from the Journey into Imagination ride, the original Abominable Snow Monster from the Matterhorn, the already mentioned Dolores the Octopus from the Country Bears, even a Stan Lee cameo. May he rest in peace. Also to note, when the sun goes down during the Halloween event, Mission Breakout becomes Monsters After Dark, where Rocket needs help to rescue Groot before any of the monsters that are running loose around the fortress eat him. In my opinion, while that Halloween overlay is equally as good as Mission Breakout, I still kinda wish that it could include a few Halloween songs like Monster Mash or Thriller. But on the other hand, the Monsters After Dark music by Tyler Bates is pretty cool, with its use of heavy metal guitars and psycho sound effects, and clinging pipes at the end. Plus, it kind of makes me think of the Enter Sandman song by Metallica. Plus, I like that the ride features Surtur's pet, the Fire Dragon, who's seen chasing Rocket and Groot around. And believe me, this ride was the monster's debut before it was seen in the beginning of Thor Ragnarok during the same year. Anyway, if you're in for a thrilling, action-packed ride with awesome rock and roll, be sure to stop by the Collector's Fortress and help the Guardians of the Galaxy break out of there.
All right, here. Thanks, everybody.
now we go from the Avengers to Star Wars. As we all know, Disney's first Star Wars attraction was Star Tours back in 1987, which later in 2011 evolved into Star Tours The Adventures Continue, and they also had the Jedi Training Academy during the mid-2000s. But after Disney purchased Lucasfilm in the early 2010s, Star Wars began to get big. Not only did Disney turn Innoventions into the Star Wars Launch Bay Expo, but they also built an entire new land behind the rivers of America called Star Wars Galaxy's Edge in 2019, which is set within the village of the Black Spire Outpost on the remote frontier planet of Batuu. Now, while I still have yet to experience the rise of the Resistance due to the attraction's popularity and those infamous boarding passes, there's one ride in this new area that I want to include for this list. Now, this is pretty much the most recent new ride that I've ever been on in the whole resort so far, next to Jesse's Critter Carousel and Inside Out Emotional Whirlwind. And let me tell you, I'm glad that my very first experience with this was shared with several of my closest friends from Vocational Visions. Set between the events of The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, Smuggler's Run puts guests into the role of a flight crew recruited by Hondo Anoka, space pirate, smuggler, and president of Anoka Transport Solutions, voiced by veteran voice actor Jim Cummings, who guides you on a mission to use the Millennium Falcon, lent by Chewbacca, to go to planet Corellia while pursuing a First Order train carrying coaxium. To me, the cool thing about this ride is that, like Epcot's Mission Space, everyone has a job, like pilot, gunner, and engineer. My first job on this ride was pilot, which in my opinion is the best experience. The gunner job is my second favorite experience. Also, your score is measured by how well each rider performs during the mission. Plus, while it may feel a bit reminiscent to the Solo movie, I think this is an epic ride for every Star Wars fan, and once I return to Disneyland, hopefully I can take the Millennium Falcon on another thrilling mission to help Chewie and the Resistance, and hopefully soon I can finally get my first chance to experience the newest Star Wars ride, Rise of the Resistance.
You have heard the First Order and made Chewie proud.
Gotta get to Disneyland.
Now here's where we take a little drive into Cars Land, which opened in June 2012. Based on the 2006 Pixar film Cars, this area was the final part of DCA's 5-year-long renovation and expansion plan. And to me, this area is absolutely amazing. It almost makes you feel like you're actually stepping into Radiator Springs. Even though it may feature 2 kid-friendly rides, one of which being something that my dad would absolutely love, the number 4 spot is going to the main attraction, Radiator Springs Racers. Now, I heard many folks say that this is just a Pixar version of Epcot's Test Track, which I agree. And while I never actually been on Test Track, Radiator Springs Racers is so much more. The ride starts out with you cruising around town, meeting the car characters along the way, and to me, their animatronics are extremely good. So good that they almost move and act realistically. But then, after getting a new paint job from Ramon and Flo, or getting a new set of tires from Luigi and Guido, you'll be faced with another car filled with riders, and that's when your race truly begins. Both cars going outside at crazy speeds, facing head-to-head around the track, and making it to the finish line. In my opinion, no matter how many times I ride it, this ride is just awesome. Plus, some believe that this is what saved Disney California Adventure, and it doesn't really matter if you're a Cars fan or if you think that they're some of Pixar's weakest movies, because in my opinion, This is one of DCA's most thrilling rides, and trust me, this will make you feel excited to go for a drive.
Incredible! I didn't say that. I did. Faster than the Queen. Great race, everybody.
Gotta get to Disneyland.
You know, when Disney makes a mountain ride, it can be a really thrilling experience. And for the number 3 spot, I decided to put 2 mountain rides. Now, I guess you're probably wondering why I didn't include the other 3 mountain rides. Well, it's because Matterhorn still has some issues with the bumpy and rough track. Grizzly River Run is probably getting some maintenance, and as mentioned earlier, Splash Mountain is soon getting a Princess and the Frog makeover. Anyway, let's start with the first mountain in my tie, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, which is located in Frontierland and first opened in September 1979. This is a mine train roller coaster ride that takes riders from the small mining town of Rainbow Ridge to a thrilling and wild ride through the deserted gold mine of Big Thunder, which was inspired by the hoodoos of Bryce Canyon National Park in Utah. Now, my first experience with this ride was way back during my late elementary age, which was either summer of 2002 or 2003. I can't really remember. But after my first time going, this ride was a really thrilling experience for me. And to me, it makes a great ride for folks who are new to roller coasters. Also, I like the several animals that are featured, like rattlesnakes, possums, tortoises, coyotes, and a goat. And I absolutely like the new Dynamite finale, which has been around since 2014. However, there's one little nitpick I have with this. You see, whenever I sit on the left side of the train, I can feel a strange feeling of air flapping against my cheek when the train passes by the bats at the beginning, which is the same little nitpick I kinda have with the Beatles and the poison darts in Indiana Jones. And now let's move on to Space Mountain, located in Tomorrowland and first opened in May 1977. This is an indoor space-themed roller coaster that takes riders from Space Station 77 to a thrilling ride through the stars. Now, to be perfectly honest, guys, while I never actually been on the 1977 version, my real first experience with this was with Rockin' Space Mountain, which was held from January through April 2007, back when Disneyland Resort was having a Rockin' Both Parks promotion where the soundtrack was changed to the Red Hot Chili Peppers' Higher Ground song with an introduction by Uncle Joe Benson from 95.5 KLOS, and LED concert lighting was added along the tracks. To me, that experience was absolutely rockin', and I'm glad that I got to do it with several of my high school friends from Link Crew. As for the other versions, well, in my opinion, the 2005 version is futuristically classic, especially with the music by Michael Giacchino. The Halloween overlay, Ghost Galaxy, which has been around since 2009, is really thrilling, especially when we see these skeletal-looking nebula creatures flying around and pursuing the rockets throughout the ride. And finally, Hyperspace Mountain, aka the Star Wars overlay, is absolutely outer galactic, even though it was actually made in order to promote the sequel trilogy. Still, I like the use of projections showing the Blue Squadron battling against the TIE Squadron, and I think the red and green lighting effects representing the guns are pretty cool. Space Mountain and Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, one ride that's out of this world, while the other is the most wildest ride in the wilderness.
Gotta get to Disneyland.
For those who don't know, The Little Mermaid has got to be one of my child favorite Disney films next to Aladdin, And when I heard that Disney was planning to build a ride based on this classic animated movie, I was really excited. And when Ariel's ride finally opened in June 2011, after years of development hell, it did not disappoint me in the least. While it was originally gonna be a suspending ride like Peter Pan's Flight, I think their choice of making an Omnimover ride like the Haunted Mansion works equally as well. In my eyes, I like how the ride's building represents a 20th century aquarium with King Triton's statue, which used to be in Fantasyland, placed on top of the roof. And I like how the ride's vehicle, which is shaped like a clamshell, transports guests under the sea to the enchanted kingdom of Atlantica, while encountering characters like Ariel, Sebastian, Flounder, Scuttle, Prince Eric, and more. And it features many of the classic musical numbers from the movie, like Part of Your World, Under the Sea, Poor Unfortunate Souls, and Kiss the Girl. Now, while this ride is very enchanting, the reason why this ride is so high on my list is because, believe it or not, I was one of the few who actually got to ride it on May 31st, 1 month before its official opening date, thanks to an email invitation. Also, last year, I actually got to have a video chat with Ariel's voice actress Jodi Benson via GalaxyCon. And believe you me, it was absolutely wonderful chatting with someone who's been a real big influence for folks who have autism, as well as disabilities with their speech or their walking. Anyway, with such an enchanting ride like this, The Little Mermaid Ariel's Undersea Adventures will make you delighted to be part of Ariel's world. Now, before we move on to the number 1 spot, I'd like to have an honorable mention. Now, I know I didn't include any shows on my list, but for this spot, we're going to talk about one that I absolutely loved, even before I actually experienced it. Now, ever since I first heard about it when it opened in Florida during the early 2000s, I thought it seemed like a really enchanting 3D show, even after watching it on YouTube over the years, though I was disappointed that I didn't get the chance to see it during my last trip to Walt Disney World in 2014, no thanks to YMCA's New Horizons. But, lo and behold, I went crazy when I heard that Mickey's PhilharMagic would open in Disney California Adventure during April 2019, and you would not believe how I felt after finally seeing it in person. I actually stood up and clapped. What I love about this show is that it features several favorite Disney songs like Be Our Guest, The Sorcerer's Apprentice, Part of Your World, I Just Can't Wait to Be King, You Can Fly, and A Whole New World. Plus, there are several funny moments that happen while Donald Duck is trying to retrieve Master Yen Sid's magical hat. Also, I think the CGI animation looks pretty good, and nowadays, it makes me think of the CGI used for Mickey's Twice Upon a Christmas. Plus, I like how some of the extended screen elements are projected on the walls of the theater. While this show may have missed a spot on my list, I think it does deserve a mention, and I think this show is worth checking out for those who love classical Disney songs or 3D musicals.
Gotta get to Disneyland.
Now, I gotta tell you, this was a really difficult list to put together, and deciding a number 1 choice wasn't really that easy, but in the end, I decided to conclude this list with an attraction that's absolutely incredible. First opening in June 2018, along with most of Pixar Pier, this is a steel roller coaster set after the events of Incredibles 2 and dedicated to the heroism of the superhero family known as The Incredibles, even though some kind of describe it the same way Violet does.
Sure, slap our names on an old ride.
Still, unlike the original California Screamin', this ride actually has a plot. As the ride begins, baby Jack Jack escapes from Edna's supervision, which starts a high-speed chase around the roller coaster to retrieve him. To me, the reason why this incredible ride tops my list is not only because The Incredibles is my all-time favorite Pixar movie, and that it features the amazing Incredibles score by Michael Giacchino, but because I like what The Incredibles do while Jack Jack causes some mischief. For example, during the 55 miles per hour launch, Dash runs up the first tunnel while avoiding Jack Jack's laser eyes. Helen stretches out to try to catch Jack Jack in his gooey form, which makes it kind of hard for her to get a good grip on him. Bob tries luring Jack Jack out with a cookie, which riders can get a good smell from. And Violet uses her force fields to try and extinguish a fire while protecting the coaster passengers. Plus, I like to give Vi a high five while my coaster passes underneath her. Plus, while we all know that this is the only Disney roller coaster in California with an upside-down inversion, I recently learned that not only is this the longest roller coaster, but it's also the fastest ride in the entire resort. And trust me, once Disneyland reopens, you'll be thrilled to go on this incredible ride. So incredible that it deserves its place as my #1 favorite attraction at the happiest place on earth.
Ah, the little one returns. Oh, thank goodness. So proud.
Well, folks, that concludes my top 15 attractions at Disneyland Resort. Hopefully this video will get everybody hyped to return to the happiest place on earth, because I believe that a year is far too long to wait. And trust me, Disneyland Resort is definitely worth visiting, especially when it comes to experiencing future attractions that have yet to be built here in California. And hopefully, by the time everybody gets vaccinated and COVID is defeated, everyone in the world can happily visit Disneyland Resort without limitations. As for all you at home, please remain seated until the video comes to a complete stop. Gather all your personal belongings, and be sure to join me for my next video. Mustang Power.
In Disneyland, make my home in Disneyland. Maybe it's all fake, that's a chance I'll take. It's perfectly okay. So what give me Disneyland? Take me there to Disney.